My name is Muhammad Sajid, and I will be serving as the moderator, while Mr. Saeed Ashraf will be our guest speaker for today. We do encourage you to ask questions at any point during the webinar. You can submit your questions in writing in the Q&A section as displayed on your screens. All the queries and questions will be answered once the presenter would finish his presentation. It is requested to everyone to please have a check on your microphones and keep them muted to avoid any kind of background disturbances. We are recording today's webinar, and you will receive an email with a link to the recording along with your certificate of participation as we conclude our time together. We are going to begin our webinar with the recitation of the Holy Quran, for which I would request Mr. Abdul Rauf.
Thank you, Talha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakumullah khair. Now I would like to invite our President, GPF Global, Mr. Adil Aslam Khan, for the welcome address. Yes, Mr. Adil Aslam Khan he's with us today. I would like to welcome him for the welcome address. Mr. Adil Aslam Khan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Talha. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening and good afternoon to all our participants in this webinar from the Gulf region and Pakistan. My name is Adhan and I'm leading the Green Professionals Forum, GPF. GPF was formed with the main objective of serving the Pakistani professionals and benefiting them by sharing activities which will add value in their professions. Please feel free to connect us via our website, LinkedIn, and other social media pages for our upcoming professional events. I and my team would like to extend our gratitude and a cheerful welcome to all the participants and send a special thank you, Mr. Saeed Ashraf, for sparing time for this webinar. Without further delay, I would like to present to you our key speaker for this webinar, Mr. Saeed Ashraf. Mr. Ashraf possesses professional and specialized qualification in project management, value engineering, and cost management from international institutions like MRICS, PMI, AACEI, and SAFE. His specialties are strategic planning, due diligence, value engineering, contracts, claims, disputes management, cost, time, and process reengineering. He is also a founder, analyst, and CEO of Smart Track Online and Total Project Management Solutions. Welcome once again and hope that all the participants will get benefit from this webinar. Thank you. Now, gentlemen, without further delay, I present Mr. Saeed Ashraf.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I hope all can hear me now.
Yes, it's very clear.
All right. Thank you very much, Adil, for such a nice introduction. I might not have been able to do this myself, but thank you. I thank all members of panels and especially you for inviting me in this webinar. Um, I'm truly honored to share my thoughts and suggestions summarizing 25 years of experience in project management with such a learned and experienced audiences. So I really thankful. Uh, I'm blessed that I had the opportunities to work with world's renowned organizations with exceptionally talented leaders, project managers, and colleagues, of course, on a variety of projects in several countries and on various positions. Um, I started my career as a junior cost engineer in 1994 and crawled through the country manager and CEO positions, climbing every step. However, I'm certainly not the person to be followed. So don't take me as an example. However, I can tell you what works and what does not work in majority of the situations. There are thousands of very sophisticated tools around, which are also very effective. You might have tried it. I have tried a lot, but majority of us really do not get to the implementation and practicing for such a sufficient time to know the real effectiveness of each tool. In this webinar, I tried summarizing my tools which worked for me most of the times. So let me start sharing my slide, if you allow me, Adil.
Yes,
Hello.
you can share your presentation.
All right. So we'll start with this. Now, the agenda of today's presentation is as following. The introduction has been done very nicely. I briefed about myself, so it's done. The second part is the primary role of project manager. As we will be discussing project management tool and tools which a project manager uses, let's recall what is expected from a project manager and what nature of tools he or she needs. So that would be our first point of discussion. Then why projects underperform most of the time and why we need all these tools basically to ensure the projects are successful. I believe that the best way to success is to learn from mistakes and objectively identifying the reasons of failures. So let's have a look that what are the common reasons for projects for underperformance. So that would be our second topic of discussion. Then we come to tools and techniques. Once we determine the core issues, what is expected to do, we will discuss what can help in achieving our objectives. So our fourth point is tools and techniques. As we are concerned about a project throughout its life cycle, the tools and techniques which I'll be sharing would encompass all phases or stages of a typical project, from initiation to closeout. So whatever I'll be sharing, you can implement on initiation phase, in planning phase, in execution phase, and in closeout phase. And that's the beauty of all these tools which are handy. So I would not differentiate separately planning and separately monitoring and control. I'll walk you through the process of project management, which I do generally, and what tools I use. So bear with me. And then we'll have a question and answer session. So this is a brief description of the agenda. The primary role of a project manager, as the project management book of knowledge says, let's say, that the project manager is a person to lead the team that is responsible for achieving the project objectives. He's responsible for the successful initiation, planning, designs, execution, supervising, and closure of a project. Now, this description of a project manager or a role of a project manager or what is expected from a project manager, if we take and extract the verbs from this description, the project manager is required primarily to lead the team. That's the first thing a project manager is expected. Then the team has to achieve the objectives as a whole, whatever the set objectives are, and then within a specified time. So these are the core expectations or core tasks of a project manager, which actually we have to understand each. So we are not expecting too much from the project manager, and we are not expecting less from a project manager. So these are the core tasks which a project manager performs. So keeping the core requirements in mind of a project manager, our today's tools are intended to assist the project manager to perform his tasks. But before we jump to the tools, let's learn from the past experience and try to identify major reasons of failure or underperformance. So as I said, that we will start with why the projects fail or underperform. And then we will focus on those tools that will help us in avoiding or mitigating such reasons. So I'll start with identifying the reasons first. Actually, this slide is just to recall that why we need all these tools and what nature of tools we require, and what tool will do what, and what will be the after effects of each tool. So I worked backward, from top to bottom. So we started with with lessons learned, and with the lessons are that what are the failures. So the first thing I take it as a priority, and that is the lack of effective communication in any project. It's not that simple as it appears or as it sounds, and this is generally less acknowledged when we plan and when we execute, but it's proven major contributor to the failure or success of a project. I want to take few moments on this. I mean, I will not elaborate a lot, but I'll just want to focus on this a little bit. Communication with your team members, with contractors, with consultants, vendors, your T-boy. It's very, very important to perform or to get results as a whole. And every member of the team and all the teams are very, very important. Any breakdown or slowdown of communication certainly will slow down the motivation, actions, and responses, and ultimately delay the project. So create open and informal channels of communication. And please do not allow people working in different silos, where people communicate only through letters or in meetings. I have seen the projects failing just because the team members and the different team or different organizations working on that project do not really communicate well in such a manner that is helpful or that is desired. Secondly, communication also includes perception. And perception means that you will be perceived how you communicate as a person or as an organization. So as an organization, if the consultants communicate with the contractors in such a manner where it is perceived by different parties or by the contractors that this consultant is not helpful, not welcoming, then that perception will create impressions. And we have seen different organizations have different impressions. And when you pre-qualify certain people, certain organization, you have their perception back of your mind. So the communication is also a perception. Generally, the effectiveness of communication is jeopardized in next stages when earlier stage is ineffective. I have to elaborate a little bit. For example, if you want to convey a message to the contractor or to anyone, if that message is vague, it's not precise, it's not what you require, the results what you want, the ultimate response would not be desirable at the same time. So several messages, several messages, whether that message is to get some information or that message is to tell people how to perform, and you want some certain target dates to be achieved, all those messages which you do, which you send out to your team members or to different organizations, they will be seen as your perception or your personality or your image. So when various messages in the same wavelength, when they are given out or when they are sent out to different people, that creates impression. And that impression, once it is a wrong impression, the other people will actually react differently. They will take a step back. They might not trust, or they trust on the other side if your message is good. um, so lack of when I say the lack of effective communication, that means not really sending submittals and sending letters and not delaying any meetings. That means that whatever you communicate, you communicate in a very, very positive way, so you get results and you get motivation of every person you are talking to. So that's what I mean by a lack of effective communication. I have seen projects failing just because that people are working in different organizations. They are working in different silos. They only communicate through letters or once they are called in the meetings. So that is what I mean by effective communication. The second failure reason of the failure, I would say, is the scope creep. In technical terms, you say, well, when the scope is not properly defined and you have to increase the scope or change the scope, of course, it affects the overall project completion and objectives. Um, if a project upon completion has to perform its functions as intended, then everything required has to be part of the scope. So what I see generally is, if a project, I mean, the project scope is not properly defined at the early stages, where some of the scope is skipped, missed, and then eventually when has to be done, it has to be taken as additional scope. While it is not an additional scope, it was missed right from the beginning. And 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 that creates, of course, a problem. So we have to find a tool where we can actually define the entire scope of the project, that when project is completed, so it performs the function that is required from that project. Uh, Poorly defined scope of project will lead to additional works which was originally missing. So this is another scope, another reason which I see, um, So once you set your objectives in terms of cost, in terms of time, in terms of quality, and when additional scopes comes in as part of the change order or variation orders, then of course your KPIs or your objectives are not met what you set originally. Another reason of failure is misaligned expectations and actions. Um, this is another um, reason which I face almost every time, and this has a history. And if we review the process of initiating a project, let's say a construction project, we are specifically uh, taking an example. The developer, before engaging an architect or anyone, is excited with the profitability numbers, that I have a land, I will build this much square meter area is built, I will sell it on this, and that's my profitability, and he's very excited about that. Then the architect joins and creates an amazing design which is expensive and directly hits profitability, but he does not tell the owner that your design will cost you this much, and the developer or the owner is still in the same state of mind that he's gonna get the maximum profit. Then a marketing team comes in, and the marketing team presents the project as it is, like on a moon overlooking Niagara Falls. So they portray the project features and everything to the customers, and of course the developers and everyone, in such a fashion that that's hardly achievable. Uh, and the developer still believes in and expects the customer will pay as he desired originally. Then another character comes in, the contractor, and the contractor quotes a price of execution beyond developer's budget, which he originally thought of. Then the project manager comes in and he suggests some great cost-cutting ideas, great strategies, and proves that he can deliver as developer wanted. The developer reluctantly agrees, and project starts. Delay occur, price escalate, quality compromised, and developer still expects best of the best in everything. The expectation levels of all stakeholders, including designer, including project manager, the contractor, and everyone, they become misaligned, and so the actions. And then when actions are misaligned, then they cause disputes and mistrust. So misalignment of expectations, that what is expected as a whole from the project manager, from the designer, from the contractor, and what is expected from the project itself, and what to do in order to achieve that, those are generally misaligned. Everyone has its own agenda, everyone wants to do some things, and they expect a little more than what is really agreed even in the contracts. So everyone is expecting differently. So once the expectations are different and misaligned, of course their actions are also misaligned, so that creates lots of dispute and mistrust. So this is another reason why our projects fail. Now then it comes to ineffective strategy. Of course, this is very obvious. Sometimes when you have scope definition is not proper, when the expectations are not proper or agreed upon, and then on top of it, the strategy does not really focus on achieving those things. Then we have unrealistic targets or timelines, ineffective performance measurement system. And as you know, that the project management says that if you can only manage if you can measure something. So the proper and effective performance measurement system is very essential for a successful project. Delayed responses from various sites for various reasons, then disputes, and disputes come from various reasons. It could be starting from communication, then expectations, then strategies, then unrealistic targets. Everything can lead to the disputes. And of course, there are certain uncertainties which you cannot really incorporate in your original plan. And the last one I would say is the cash flow shortage. To me, these 10 reasons are the most common ones which I have seen many times on many projects. So apart from the uncertainties and cash flow shortages, I believe we have tools to manage them. So today's presentation and the presentation of the tools are focused on somehow managing all these above challenges we face on our projects. And there is a master tool. And that master tool actually works most of the time for everyone. And that master tool is not the person, but the smile on his face. That confident, optimistic smile is a master tool when you are a project manager, and you can use this master tool to achieve lots of project objectives and lots of results. But it has to be a confident, optimistic smile. There are other types of smiles which are really not desired. But this smile, as a project manager, will actually give optimism to everyone, to the team, that things can be done regardless of the situation, regardless of the challenges. Things can be done, and there is a possibility that we can still achieve the project objectives. It is very essential for the team bonding. Team bonding, because you have to lead the team, because your primary role is to lead the team who actually will perform, and collectively it will achieve the objectives. The bonding of the team is very important, and your smile is one tool for your communication. If you smile to your team members, if you smile to the other organizations, then it actually creates a bonding between all team members, and then actually it motivates everyone to do and perform the work. And that motivation could be even going out beyond their boundaries, beyond their original job descriptions, and getting results which you desire, or which project um, is required. So motivation is exceptionally uh, required for any construction project, because construction projects are always very challenging, and they require constant motivation of the people. Then your smile, when it goes to motivation, it increases productivity of everyone. Everyone will feel happy to work extra hours, will feel happy to work with you. Everyone will feel happy to make you happy as a project manager, and they will improve their productivity. And improved productivity in a cohesive manner will get much better results than any other tool. Then when you are in dispute resolution, this smile will also help you in resolving the disputes very, very quickly. First of all, it prevents disputes because there are certain disputes which actually do not exist, but they just exist because of the attitude of the project manager or attitude of the team member. And but if those disputes do occur and you sit down for dispute resolution, having a trustworthy smile on on um, on everyone will give a gesture that the resolution can be done, the resolution can be managed by the person, and it will be a win-win situation. So it's not offensive, it's cooperative smile. Once you give it to people, you can resolve the disputes very, very quickly. So basically, I would say um, that your smile is a master tool, and it works in every phase of the project, every type of project, in all circumstances. I am personally not a very pleasant person, but I'm always attracted to such a face, and I always trust such a face, and I give away my even um, my rights sometimes to really work with such a wonderful person. Now, let's get to some of the tools which you might be expecting, uh, other than this talk. And the first tool which I use is a mind mapping. Basically, this tool is, I use it right from the beginning before we start any planning, before strategizing it. It is a tool which actually give you a clear thought of the project scope. So when you define the scope, when you want to define the complete scope of the project, where you feel that this nothing will miss out, this mind map will actually give you a clear idea that how things will move. And mind mapping is primarily when you start thinking of something, then it takes your thought to another level, and connected thought and connected requirement, and then it connects to the another thought, and that is connected to another thought. So the entire chain and entire cycle is completed. Now, I'll just give you one example. This is an example of a resort which we were designing, and we were defining the scope. So extreme adventure is the scope, is the organization, or is a resort. At first level, at a strategical level, it's a kind of work breakdown structure also, which will help you in the next level to develop your work breakdown structure and planning. So extreme adventures as a resort has various functions. It has, let's say, water sports, ground sports, retainage facilities, events, logistics. And when you go to, let's say, water sports, then your mind will go and connect it to the skiing, to jet ski, to scuba diving, to tubes, ground sports, adventure games, slings, climbing, archery. And more important, I mean, the example I will give you this is the owner wanted to retain the people when they visit to the maximum time, for a maximum time. So to retain the customers, we had to identify that what actually facilities we can create to retain the customers or retain the visitors for the maximum time. And that retainage facilities will include food and beverages. And when we say food and beverages, that means we're talking about restaurants. And when we take restaurants, that means it can be formal dining, casual dining, takeaway, then lodging, guest rooms, and camping, and then retainage facilities, then a souvenirs shop. So all facilities and everything which actually attracts people or visitors for to do another thing or to stay there, that was the intent. So when you have a scope, or when you have an objective that you need to do this thing, and then you start thinking, related thoughts will come in, and then all these related thoughts are actually uh, become a chain, and then you get to the end to it, and that becomes your final scope at the end of the day. So when you think that this can be done and this will also be required, and then you think that is also required, so in order to do this you also need this, so then the things will start coming in. Of course you will have other tools like checklists of various aspects, but but mind mapping is another very effective tool which you use for organizing your thoughts at when you have nothing in mind, when you have nothing on paper. You start exploring your mind and exploiting your mind, and organizing your thoughts in such a manner that will be used later for your work breakdown structure and planning the spaces and planning your uh, there are lots of tools available. They are free. Mind mapping tools are available and you can use it. You can also do it manually. I use it, a free version of a mind map. So this is one tool which I use right from the beginning, just to define my scope or the project scope. And I paste it on the wall. So when I start creating my execution strategies or bid packaging strategies or work packaging strategies, I can clearly see that what is required and what packages should be combined together and what should be split. So this gives me an idea that how to strategize my project. What are related facilities, what are not related facilities, what can be done separately, what can be combined, what has to be done first, and then what can be done later. So this is the first tool I use when I start planning of any project. This tool, as I said, the scope creep, when the mind map will actually minimize the scope creep. Then another challenge is usually when I explain in briefly, that was the level of expectation that everyone has on a project. Owner wants to do or to have everything best of the best, like he has to the quality has to be the best, the time has to be very efficiently done and in a minimum time, cost be very effective, safety has to be, everything has to be best of the best. So if we scale down um, the requirements from 0 to 10, and we identify different aspects of the project which have to be managed or which have to be looked very carefully, and we have to follow them, and we have to make sure that all these aspects of the project or objectives are met uh, at the desired quality. But all these cannot be 100% done. Everything, one aspect might actually compromise the other one. For example, if you improve the quality or maximize the safety or maximize environmental issues, then might you have to increase the cost of the project, which actually is a compromise. So cost versus environment, cost versus quality. Similarly, time, if you want to minimize the time and you want to accelerate the project time, then you need to add some extra cost to it. So basically what I'm saying, that this tool is a radar chart uh, which actually shows primary and key objectives of the project with their values to achieve. The blue line is the target, where all stakeholders, and especially with the owner, when you, as a project manager, when you start the project, after doing the scope definition, after knowing what has to be done, what are the essential elements. You identify 5, 6, 9, 10 objectives, whatever is depending upon the project, and then you start rating them, and you agree with the client that, for example, what is the most important thing of this project which cannot be compromised at all. So for example, in this chart, it shows functionality is the highest priority, so that cannot be compromised. That is the desired or target value at 10. Then aesthetics is a very prestige project, so that cannot be compromised. Uh, Similarly, safety and quality cannot be compromised, and end user requirements are not compromised. So these aspects are have the most important factors to monitor and to control. And if something comes up against them, then these elements and these objectives will take priority. For example, if there is a requirement for a safety which require additional cost, so the cost will be occurred in order to achieve the safety objective. So these numbers actually, this tool gives you graphically and numerically what is most important on this project and what relevant relative to other aspects of the project. And of course, this tool, you will use it and you will carry this throughout the project life cycle. You start at the planning phase with the owner, and then you when the designer comes in or architect comes in, then you discuss all these aspects with them. They have to agree on it, and then when they deliver some deliverable, then we have to review that whether these aspects have been properly done. So this is another tool. I might elaborate a little, because each tool has history and has can be elaborated a lot, but I think with the time constraints we have, I'll just go over, and maybe in question and answer sessions I can address that. But this is one of the tool. The second tool which I use after mind mapping is the quality model, which sets the objectives of any project, that these are the success objectives of our project, which have to be monitored. And when after setting these objectives, then every deliverable or every phase of the project, we review these objectives and see that where we are on this, and we try to achieve these projects over other objectives. Now, previous two tools were actually we use it for we use them for setting our objectives and the scope, which is mainly coming from the owner side. So owner tells you that this is what I want to build, and of course you do this a detailed scope definition, and then he tells you that fine, I want to build this, but these are my primary objectives which I will compromise, and I will compromise on these things up to this limit. Now it's the time to strategize that how you want to strategize the project. And the first thing we use, and which I feel is the most important thing before making any planning, is the SWOT analysis. That SWOT analysis will tell you that what can be done and what you are capable of, which you cannot be done, what are the opportunities and what are the threats which we have to put in front of us. So when we make a strategy, we exploit our strengths, we exploit our opportunities, and we try to minimize weaknesses and threats. So this is a typical SWOT analysis, not coming from any project, but I'll just give you one example of each in order to elaborate this. So for example, the strengths on the top left corner is these are our strengths, and then the second column is that how we can exploit those strengths in order to maximize the benefits. So for example, our one of the strength is on this project there is very experienced project management team. That's one strength. The second strength is detailed design documents are available, so they are very, very detailed. Then sufficient cash flow, then sufficient manpower. So all these are strengths. How we can exploit these strengths to further enhance our to achieve our objectives? That experienced management team can develop a very detailed and accurate planning document, so no surprises or minimum surprises. So that's one of the things which can be done. So if the team is experienced, they know exactly what to do, they know exactly productivity rates, they know exact sequence of the works. So the contingencies or the risks are minimum. So this is one thing can be done. Similarly, when you go to the weaknesses, uh, for example, one's weakness is that ineffective decision making of employer. So the employer organization in such operates in such a manner that the decisions are not are not being made properly or timely or efficiently. So what can be done to really minimize this weakness is that early engagement with the employer. So you engage the employer very early on, so whatever the time it takes, so you keep on discussing with him, keep on briefing him. So when you require a decision, it is made, and it is made clearly, and what to achieve the objective. So this is one of the steps you can take. On the opportunity side, for example, one opportunity is that use of redundant materials and equipment. So if redundant material and equipment is available that is not being used, so this project will actually is an opportunity to incorporate this redundant material into your planning or into your use. So this is an opportunity. If we talk about threats, example, so neighborhood property, this is a threat that can be damaged. So actions to minimize the impact is to protection of works and obtain insurance. There would be lots of opportunities and threats and strengths and weaknesses, uh, but what I mean is that this template will give you, or this tool will give you um, a very comprehensive idea that if you want to plan something, you plan according to your strengths, considering your weaknesses and threats, and exploit the opportunities when you plan. And when you have this table in front of you always, so whenever you want to visit or revisit your planning, you can use this tool. So this tool will actually be carried over all phases of the project, because projects will have revisions, will have different strategies. And when we talk about agile approach, this tool will give you that how to actually address uh, or respond to the changes required for the benefit of the end user or the developer. So this is a SWOT analysis. Once we know that our strengths and weaknesses are, once we know that what are the threats posed to our project, the third document which I produce is a risk register and risk response plan. Generally, it is one pager. I don't go into very detailed, but as a project manager, it's a one pager which covers almost 20 to 30 different risks. And the template is that on the first column is the reference, and then there is a risk description. Then who is the owner of the risk? What is the impact value, probability, and multiplication of both is the risk rating. So each risk has what rating, and my risk rating is usually 25, which is 5 is the maximum for each impact and probability. then what would it cost if that risk still exists, and if this risk is actually occur, and then what would be the time delays. So this analysis will give you a detailed list of risks on your project. For example, the first risk I would say in an example is the damages to adjacent property during execution. This is a risk, and the owner of this risk is the contractor who has to make sure that that is not done. If it happens, then the impact is maximum, that is 5. The probability of doing this without any protection or without any response is 3, which is really above average. So it gives us a risk rating of 15 out of 25. And if this risk occurs, then it might cost you 10 million. And in order to repair and rectify all these things, this will cost you 30 days, sorry. So this is one risk. So what would be your response plan is that you need to protect the adjacent property. And if you protect that properly, the impact will be reduced to 2, and probability will also be 1 of damages. So, so your risk rate will go down to 2. And in order to do this, actually you have to pay 200,000 for the protection of works, but you will save 100 million, and it's a 2 days job. So this basically, this one pager risk register and response plan is always on my table. Keep reviewing it. We keep reviewing it every fortnightly to see that where are our risks and what is the status of each risk what we are facing. This gives us a contingency planning. This gives a strategically an edge that before it occurs, we actually do many things so we don't take it for the surprises. So risk register and risk response plan is another activity, another tool which I use. Then responsibility metrics. This is a tool which I use to really summarize the responsibilities of every stakeholder written in the contract. You use this to strategize, you use this to plan the contract documentation and putting certain responsibility to certain one depending upon your strengths and weaknesses and the risks. So there will be few responsibilities which you want to transfer to different people, which you don't want to assume based on the risk factor and based on the cost or the consequences. But if you have your strengths to do this particular responsibility your own, so you take that responsibility and you put it in your side. So this simple metrics actually provides a very clear identification that who has to do what. This is an extremely well, and this usually what I do is also that all the contract documents we take it, and then we major responsibilities we distribute and put this into one chart, and that is in front of us to avoid any confusion, or instead of going back to different contract documents. Cpm Schedule is another tool which is for the detailed planning. One of the reasons that the strategical planning is not properly done. So you are all familiar with this Primavera Cpm scheduling. It includes all, of course, the sequence of work, the work breakdown structure, the resource planning, and everything. I may not elaborate a lot on this, but this includes every single step for developing this Cpm schedule. This is an S curve, which is which is the output of your Primavera CPM schedule. It gives, this is an ECG of the entire project. In fact, it gives you the complete history, that what was planned and what is actual, and then accordingly you can project that based on the current trend, what is likely to happen on this project. So this gives you a complete picture of the project, only one pager, one graph. Then in order to measure the progress, you need to have key performance indicators. Key performance indicators are very essential to establish in order to measure your success. And those could be, they are simple cost performance index. Those are generally cost and schedule. But you can have your own key performance indicators based on the information or based on the project side. I have cost performance, quality performance, safety, risk, project risk, performance, scope performance, team performance, and productivity ratios. So all these ratios, you can have your own, and you can have your own formulas for this also. But there has to be performance indicators and performance measurement system. These are the formulas which I use. I can share this with you, but these are not standards. These are our own creation. This is a dashboard report at the end of the day. Once you have your all strategies done and you start monitoring, then this is a dashboard report, which usually it's again a one pager. It gives you complete history of your time and your costs and your critical issues and the major risks. So usually I share this with our clients executives, and we discuss everything on this, and this provides everything about the project. You can also use a management information system, which I strongly prefer that you must have an online information management system. It could be any software, but it's a collaboration software which we need to have. It gives you the complete dashboard reporting online in real time. The versions come also on desktop and mobile devices. So wherever you go, you have all these information and all these reports with you. For task managements, I use Microsoft Outlook. You might also use it, but this is a very effective tool summarizing your all tasks and calendars and emails all in one place. And if nothing works on your tasks, you can use your sticky notes, but instead of using sticky notes, and you use Kanban Board, and that Kanban Board is a very simple tool where you actually you draw a table with 3 columns where you put your sticky notes to do, in progress, and done. And then you can, of course, whenever you want to review, you replace and exchange different sticky notes. But this is a task management tool which have to be which you can use. Trello is another software for the same task management you can use, and this is for Agile Approach of the project, which is not our topic, but that can be done as a this is a collaborative tool for task management primarily. Then if you are going out of your objectives, nothing is working, or lots of things have changed from your objective and you are off from objectives, value engineering is another tool which can be used to come back to your objectives and going back to the track. It's basically a workshop. You get every disciplined person on board, on the table, start discussing it and start using it, and create a value of this. So if you are if you have to go back to your original objectives and start replanning, then value engineering technique is another good approach. You want to use it. Then agile approach is another technique, another tool which is not a topic of today, but definitely it's basically it has to be your all approach and methodology should be responsive to the change. It has to be iterative, so you can incorporate the changes required for an incremental value, and that is for the customer. So agile methodology is to define, develop, evaluate, and scope. So it's in the circle unless the value to the customer is properly given at any phase. So this requires a lot of maybe elaboration, but you can use this agile approach if someone knows it. In conclusion, I would say, although a few slides took longer time than expected, but in conclusion, there are few documents in one pager form which you can use in front of you. You keep it in front of you right from the beginning, and you take those documents, take those pages from the planning phase, from the initiation phase, then start using them for as a monitoring purpose, and then start controlling it. These are very simple tools. They are not very sophisticated, very effective, and those are just in front of you on the table all the times. I found them very effective when I start reviewing it every day or every week and start changing my strategies to address all these challenges, and start getting on board with different team members. I hope this will this will give you some idea. All these tools need a lot of elaboration, but I just shared it. Maybe you can just explore them further and customize it for yourself. And thank you very much for listening. Maybe I just ran out of some time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Saeed. A very captivating presentation on project management. Many thanks to our honorable speakers, Mr. Saeed Ashraf, for presenting the practical tools and techniques in the field of project management. Sir, I would like to close your screen sharing so we can
Yeah,
move
sure.
forward.
Just a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so now we would like to move to the Q&A session. So for that, I would like to call Mr. Naveed Sajid and Mr. Faisal Nadeem. We will be having only 2 questions concerning the shortage of time. Any other questions we may have from the audience, we will answer them. They can also contact us by email, and those questions would be answered on the email and also published on the website as well. So over to you, Mr. Naveed.
Thank you very much, Talha. Sir, the first questions which I want to convey to you, that one of participant has asked. In the first slide, you have mentioned that lack of communication will impact the project. What are the key parameters which can be used by project manager to overcome this? Please elaborate.
Okay. I'm glad that someone has picked up that point, and eager to to know. When I say in order to overcome that lack of communication, you need to open informal communication channels with all stakeholders, which means that besides the letters, besides your transmittals, besides your minutes of meeting or beside meeting, you have to open first. That's the first steps. You have to open communication channels, and you have to make sure that people know that you want them to come to you and discuss very openly their problems. and those problems, when they share, they will not be actually misused or exploited. So that is a gesture which a project manager has to give it to his team members, and at the organization level, um, the project manager has to train his team to act according to their counterparts. For example, generally what happens, if you know that the contracts engineer or the quantity surveys or cost engineers, when they review the payments of the contractors, actually they start fighting because everyone takes the things very personally. So the second thing, first thing is the project manager has to open up himself. Then he has to train his team members to open up themselves and take contractor and the other counterparts as their friend. You will not compromise on professionalism, but you take them on as an open mind, listen to them, and having is a pleasant discussions in a pleasant environment. This is number two. And third thing is lack of communication is the transparency in information exchange. Many things happen when actually there is no transparency. There are lots of rumors going on. So the transparency is another important factor for any project. So just imagine that if you or your team members actually start acting in such a manner that the other persons will not come to you with the fear that their problems might not be heard properly, those might not be solved, or those problems might be misused. So they will start taking distances, and they will start finding direct ways beyond you to the owners or to other people to start rectifying it. So everyone will start having its own small uh, small it will create a polarization. So once you have a polarization, the productivity reduces. When the productivity reduces a lot, then it is visible in terms of quality, in terms of delays, in terms of cost overrun, and the owner doesn't want that at all. So all these things is, if I underline this, that means that you have to be open, you have to be open-minded, you have to be open-hearted, and receive and welcome other people informally in your capacity.
Thank you very much, sir. As due to time shortage, we will close this question and answer session. Over to Talha.
Yeah, thank you so much, Naveed. Thank you so much, Mr. Saeed. So before going towards the closing of today's webinar, I would request everyone to take the feedback shown on your screens. It surely helps us to create a better experience for you, for all of our members. So kindly take the feedback. You will also be provided by a short survey at the end of the webinar. It will be only 3 questions. You might take the survey for any suggestions or any betterment you recommend for GPF Global. So I expect that our viewers and all our attendees has gone through the polling and gone through the feedback. That's it. Okay, so that is all the time that we have for today. And I do want to thank everybody for joining us. If you would like to learn more about today's topic, project management, or any other related subjects, we do encourage you to register yourself as member of GPF and be updated about the upcoming. You can see the website link on your screens, and you can also contact us by email at the contact at the rate of gpfglobal.org. So any other questions remaining? We understand that due to the shortage of time, we were not able to answer all the questions, but we will answer them and that will be published on the website. So we look forward to seeing you in the next webinar shortly. Thank you once again and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.